Bite size. Welcome to another episode of Chewing the Fat. I'm your host, Big Rob. It is a bite-size edition, a Halloween edition. Thank you so much to everyone who has tuned in, downloaded, listened to the podcast. I certainly do appreciate your support. Big shout out to Mercer for buying me a coffee at chewingthefatbr.com. Also, to the folks around the world that listen to the podcast, thank you so much. It is so cool to see that there are listeners in France and Germany, and even there are two people listening in the North Pole. I'm hoping it's Mr. and Mrs. Claus. I'm trying to stay on the nice list, and I appreciate your support. And again, if you like the podcast and if you would like to support it, it doesn't cost anything for you to leave a rating, a 5-star rating, or write me a review at wherever you listen to the podcast at. I certainly do appreciate that. That helps more folks find the podcast. As this is a bite-size episode, I just wanted to catch up on some things going on in my life. We were wrapping up Robtober. My birthday is in the month of October, so I like to celebrate all month long, and it's about connecting with friends and family. So I've had a lot of chances to meet with friends. Usually it's over food. We'll grab some breakfast or some lunch or dinner or something like that and just reconnect because that is one of the most important things to me is the human connection, a connection with other people. And that's one reason why I started the podcast too, is to let you know you're not alone. If you have those dark days, you're not alone. There are other people that have that. I have those days, but you can reach out. There's always someone there. Reach out to me if you need to. Reach out to a friend. Just let somebody know that you need them. That's the first step. It really, really is. So I've enjoyed a great Robtober, and thanks to all the folks that I've been able to get together with, all the new friends that I've made that have wished me a happy Robtober through the Instagram account at Chewing the Fat BR on Instagram. I really do appreciate it. I love connecting with folks. So thank you so very much for this short bite-sized episode of Chewing the Fat. I just wanted to do a quick Fast Five. We're going to do a quick spoopy Fast Five. Fast Five is powered by Poddex, app created by Travis Brown. You can get it in any of your app store. There are also physical decks that you can get. And if you go to chewingthefatbr.com/Poddex and use promo code CHEW, you can get 10% off of your decks. But I'm going to hit the randomizer, and here we go with question number 1. If you could bring one famous person back from the dead, who would you pick? I would probably pick Robin Williams. He was such an inspiration to me. He was such a light, such a genius at comedy. And I would just love to have him back so that his light could be back in this world. Speaking of someone else who would be great to bring back in light, Leslie Jordan. We lost him just last week. Another light in the darkness, especially during COVID times, and just bringing laughter and light to the world. So we need more people like that. So when there are times when we lose those lights, I think it's on us to step up and try to be more of a light into this world. So I can't bring them back, but we can definitely carry the torch for them. So that's who I would bring back if I could. So I have to toss up between Robin Williams and Leslie Jordan. So, but yeah, so seeing as I can't, I'm just going to have to try and burn a little bit brighter for everyone. All right. Question number 2. Do you have any favorite scary movies? Now, I am not a horror movie type of person. I am just not my genre. I like laughter. I like light. So horror movies are not one of my favorites. But one horror movie that I really actually do enjoy, and I think it's because of like the special effects that they use and things like that. And it's the remake of 13 Ghosts with Tony Shalhoub. I think that's just a great horror movie. So that's probably like my favorite one. A close second would be The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox. Again, there is some levity and comedy in that one. It is not as, horrific as some movies out there, but yeah, that'd definitely be the direction I would go for scary movies. Question number 3. Do you believe in ESP? I don't know if it's ESP as a power per se, but I definitely think that people have some senses that do get heightened around things. You find people all the time that like, oh, I just had a bad feeling about this. Oh, I just had, that person put off a weird vibe. I think sometimes people become sensitive to, the vibrations of other people. Maybe they're just very cognizant of their body language and the way they say things or stuff like that. So I don't know if I would call it ESP, but I definitely think that your senses can be heightened and that you can be more aware of things than maybe you normally would be. I don't know. I don't think anybody can read anybody's mind, but I think you can get that little spidey sense that goes off, and you kind of know something's up. But I don't know that I would call it ESP. All right, and question number 4. Are you superstitious? I wouldn't say I'm superstitious. I'm just kind of regular-stitious. Office fans, I hope you enjoyed that. I want to say I'm not superstitious, but I think 13 is a lucky number for me. A lot of people think that it's unlucky, I guess, but I think 13 is a lucky number for me. Sometimes I have times where I try to avoid cracks in sidewalks. I don't want to break my mother's back. Not that I actually think that would, but I don't know, maybe it's a childhood remembrance that comes up and just kind of, it becomes fun. So, but I don't know if I would say that I'm superstitious, but I guess I do avoid breaking mirrors and walking under ladders and stuff like that. And black cats I try to avoid, but that's only because I'm allergic to all cats. So it has nothing to do with being a black cat. It's just allergic to all cats. So I'm just saying I'm regular-stitious and not superstitious. Okay. And question number 5. Do you have a favorite ghost story? Well, it's a spooky story. I don't know if I'd call it a ghost story. Maybe it's a ghost story, but I do have a very, very spooky story. And it's actually based on true events. My friend Chip Herring, who was actually on the podcast earlier this season, he tells a story when he was a child living at Sacred Heart Cultural Center. It was a church at the time, and his parents went out, and he had a spooky encounter. As a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to make a short film of his story with my friends over at Wages of Sin. And I'll put the link to that in the show notes so you can check out Chip's scary story of the wrong room, because it still brings chills to my spine whenever he tells us. And it's actually told by him. I got together with him, and he actually told the story for the short film too. So you'll have to check that out. That is probably one of my favorite scary stories. So you'll have to check that out. Also, speaking of scary stories, that's it. That's the Fast 5. So there you go. If you have answers to those, don't forget you can call in through the website at chewinthefatbr.com and leave your answers to those if you have some different ones. I'd love to hear that. And speaking of scary stories, though, my friend Jonathan Cook released his latest episode of Gather by the Ghost Light. Talk about some scary stories. His radio theater podcast, Gather by the Ghost Light. I'll put a link in for that, and I was honored to be one of the voice actors in his latest episode. So I'll leave the link to that as well, so you can check that out for some spooky listening. Not only this latest episode, but all of his past seasons. It's some good stuff. It's some really good stuff. So you definitely want to check out Gather by the Ghost Light. And as I segue into the final moments of this bite-sized episode, I will leave you with my rendition of The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. But as always, thank you again for being a part of this podcast. If you want to support it, you can buy me a coffee at chewinthefatbr.com. You can also check out the shop that's on there. There's some t-shirts and journals and things like that for you if you would like to check that out. As always, I love hearing from you. If you'd like to sign up for the email group, you can do that through the website as well. And give me a follow on Instagram, too. I'd love to keep up with you and find out what you've got going on in your life. And it's at Chewing the Fat BR on Instagram. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your life through this podcast. And I leave you now with The Raven from Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book's surcease of sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my door. This is it, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely this is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the stately days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon the bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than mothered. Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, Doubtless, said I, what it utters is only its stock in store, caught from some unhappy master whom unmercifully disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat, engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed by an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, and nymphe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff, this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempest sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by the heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, within the distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Be that word I sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting, get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit thy bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.